Now,
I always like art.
wouldn't you say that, like my last home, then I would definitely be visual when you walk in? It's all white carpet, mirrored fireplace, marble, crystal chandelier.
Yeah, the Kinesthetic, on the other hand, instead would have pictures of their kids everywhere, instead of a mirror, instead of any mirrors.
Right. No, I might put a picture of the kids on a piece
On a
of
nightstand
furniture or something.
Yeah,
But,
someplace that looks right.
right. You put a good, nice painting or
But it
something
makes the
on the wall.
Kinesthetic feel good to have that picture of the kids right there on the wall.
Well, I could go into a little corner and look at them and it'd make me feel good.
Right, okay. The art that they display. The visuals tend to display art that is like a photograph.
Mm-hmm.
Auditories usually don't display art, and kinesthetics display art that gives you a feeling. Auditories art is, if they do display art, it's kind of a vague, kind of a picture. I know an auditory that was decorated in an office in Salt Lake, real estate office, and when he was there, when he was decorating this office, he had to put up some pictures and he didn't know what to put up, and so he started putting up plaques everywhere. You know, I won this, and I graduated from this, and he only put a few up, and that was it, and most of the walls were bare. And so his secretary said, why don't you go out and buy some pictures? And so he had some money, so he went out and bought some pictures. When he came back with these pictures, they were pictures of like the ocean against the shore, but it was like foggy. You could hardly make out what they were. I mean, you could, but barely. And, you know, different scenes of the same kind of thing. And that went all throughout, because it wasn't important to him what it looked like. It wasn't important how it felt. What was important was that he had something to cover the walls. Because the secretary told him to. Okay. But the kinesthetic, if he were doing the same thing, or she, would put up pictures of like little kids, or a girl in a swing, or the old man and the old woman with wrinkles and character, and or the bum with the holes in the soles of his shoes.
And what would a visual do?
And the visual would put up a picture that looks like a photograph of maybe a nice tree, of a nice tree in a meadow. Beautiful picture, nice art that looks like the real thing more often than not.
Then you would say my office is visual?
I don't remember what's in there, but probably. I think you're a visual anyway, so.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of artwork in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the real thing, it is the real thing.
It is the real thing.
It came out of my home.
Okay.
Yes, I have some very valuable
Yeah.
paintings.
Yeah. Okay. See, that's the kind of art, and that's, so as you go around this person's old home that they just sold before they buy the new one?
Actually, my
Look at the art.
office is more visual than it is practical or comfortable. That's the way I like that.
Yeah, see, I knew that the minute I saw him, when he first came in to help us out a long time ago. Anyway. Decor art. Oh, clean. We talked a little bit about this a minute ago, but clean to the visual is squeaky clean. You could eat off their floors if you
I
had
like
to.
that, if I can do it.
Yeah, the auditory, could take it or leave it. Clean is not particularly important.
No, it drives me crazy even in the office.
Yeah.
I spend my time going along. I'm the one that empties most of the little trash cans and makes sure everything's dusted and picks up the little round things that come off the paper hole punch. And
I had
things
a
drive me
boss
crazy.
that did that would walk around and he would go
I
all
did.
over the floor and pick those things up.
Sure, I did.
And when I wasn't visual, I didn't understand. I thought, that's stupid. That's really stupid. I mean, gosh, clean it up later. But he'd do it. And he'd get mad at the salespeople. I was the sales manager. He'd get mad at the salespeople who would make those kind of messes. And he'd say, Ken, I want you to straighten them up on it.
I try not to be overbearing, and I turn my head the other way to keep people happy.
Bite your tongue.
I bite my tongue, but that is my nature. I mean, I walk by and if a book's out of place, I mean, this looks a little tacky now, but at the end of the day,
It'll be
if they're-
straight.
before I go home, I like to straighten it. I want the trash cans empty, like there are other people, I mean, and I'm not complaining, it's just their nature. They can leave and their trash baskets are full. When I come in the morning, that's just the same way. I don't think in all the years that I've been living on my own or since, I was a teenager, I can't recall more than 2 times that I've ever left to go to work or out of the house without making the bed. I cannot tolerate to come home to a bed that's not made. Now, I might even leave a few dishes in the sink. That's not as bad. But that bed, the minute I get up, after I brush my teeth and everything, I go back and make my bed.
I have a friend whose wife would take his kids out of school if they hadn't made their bed that day. She would go to school, get them, bring them home, and make them make their bed. Because she felt like that was important.
It is important.
And to an auditory, it's not that important.
No.
School would be much more important to an
Right.
auditory. And the kinesthetic, clean is not clean. Kinesthetic's home, like I said, is their castle.
Right.
And so if it gets them messed up a little bit, hey, it's their castle, it's not somebody else's. Let it lie. And the auditory is kind of a problem too with clean, because they don't see as well as the visual or even as the kinesthetic. What the auditory will do is they'll clean that window and they won't even see if there are any smudges on it or spots on the glasses. They won't see it. It's just not there to them.
I mostly fall into the visual part of that, but I find that I might mess things up a bit because I'm having a good time and feeling comfortable, and books might be scattered about here, all over the floor and everything. But then when I'm through, I want it picked up.
Yeah. Okay, on to punctuality.
Oh, I don't know.
The visual wants to be punctual all the time. That's one of their pet peeves.
Wants to be or is?
Usually is. Almost always is. In fact, they don't tolerate it in other people. They might tolerate it in themselves, but they won't.
Isn't that peculiar how people will tolerate it in themselves, but if you're 5 minutes late, I mean, I know people that they can be an hour late or 2 hours. Well, I'm a busy person. But if you're 3 minutes late, I mean, it's a horrible thing.
Yeah. Well, that's the visual. Time clocks were made for these people. You know, punch the clock in and out.
Right.
That's the visual. The auditory, time is not that important to it. I mean, it's important, but it's only logic that governs that. Because what happens then is, if they've got something to do that's really important, more important than what they're going to do, then they'll do what they're doing.
Well, that only makes sense to me.
That's logical. That's the auditory. But the kinesthetic is the worst of all. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about a guy. He was 2 hours late for his son's wedding. He's kinesthetic. Now, kinesthetic, the problem with the kinesthetic is they don't even know what time it is.
That's unforgivable unless the car broke down.
See, you sound like a visual. Now, the kinesthetic is saying, gosh, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know what time it was. And he didn't. Because he was so engrossed, so wrapped up in what he was doing, that he lost track of what was going on. He didn't realize, after he did all of the things that he did that day, that it was his son's wedding. He didn't realize that while he was doing it, because he was into what he was doing.
Well, I could see in some cases where you might get into something and lose track and miss an appointment. But I would think that would be a difficult thing to miss a wedding or something like that.
Well, he didn't miss it. He was just 2 hours late.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
2
missing.
2 hours late's no, he didn't miss it. They
And he didn't feel.
He was a witness.
No, to me,
that was my dad.
Is that right?
That was my wedding.
Well, I'm sorry.
After 1 hour, wait a minute, after 1 hour, my mom walked in, and I said, where's Dad? And she said, he's out trying to find a place to park the car. See, in Salt Lake, in the temple where I got married, it's very difficult in June to find a parking place.
Took him an hour to find one?
And it probably did. But if he'd been a visual, he would have known that, and he would have gotten there an hour early.
That's right.
See, but he wasn't a visual, he was a kinesthetic. And I was mad. I was so mad at the time that I didn't talk to him for a long time. But I learned these things a couple of years ago, and I realized that it's not his fault. He doesn't try to be late. He tries, in fact, not to be late. But he can't help himself.
See, there's certain.
See, these are characteristics of the way people think.
But I think
and
that
if
certain
you understand
things,
them, well.
See, like a wedding,
I know what you're
or
thinking.
if you have tickets to a play or something.
I know what you're thinking.
Then you
and
think
I
ahead of
understand.
time, and that would be a visual. That's me.
That's right.
But I find myself all the time racing against time.
Well, a visual will, because they pack in so much in a day.
Then that's me. That's me.
But
I
see,
am constantly 5 to 10 minutes late.
But the kinesthetic.
I even set
just
my
doesn't
alarm
realize.
clock 15 minutes ahead of time. My watch is 15 minutes ahead of time because I know me. I'm always 5 minutes late.
Yeah, and you don't want to be, and so
No, I don't want to
you'll
be.
work against that. That's
Right.
right. But the kinesthetic won't, because,
And it isn't because
They
I'm
can't.
lounging around having a good time, I'm packing too much in.
well, the kinesthetic may be doing the same thing,
Mhm.
but their problem is that they don't realize they're late.
No, I always know, when I am flying down the freeway at 85 miles an hour, I know I'm late.
See, that's a more of, that's a visual tendency.
And I hate being late, even 3 minutes.
My dad was also late to my sister's wedding, but he was only 1 hour late to hers.
Well, that's not bad.
Hers was in January, it's easier to find a parking
Mhm.
place.
Well, you know what, if you knew that was his tendency, you should have told him the wedding was at 1 if it was at 2.
Well, we did, but we gave him a half an hour leeway.
Oh, I see.
It wasn't enough, so.
Now, I know people,
In fact, we have family parties and we tell him
different,
different time than we
oh,
tell
I
everybody
have friends
else.
that I do that too.
Because they're-
always,
They're the kinesthetics.
right.
They are the kinesthetics.
You mean, they couldn't possibly be the visuals?
Well, they could possibly be, but they're probably not. I can bet they're not.
I don't
without
know.
meeting them.
I've lumped this person into visual all the way down so far while you're describing
Okay,
this.
maybe the reason they're late then is a different reason altogether. Maybe the reason they're late is because they want to show up late. Because they want to be recognized. And they can't be recognized if they're on
No,
time.
I think they just pack too much in and they're more important than the other person, so it's no big deal.
Well, that can be visual, but that's more
Mhm.
auditory response. Because it's more logical to get that thing done, because it's more important than meeting with you, because they're more important. The things they're doing are more
Right.
important. That's an auditory
be.
response.
But I mean, it isn't just me, you know, that I'm,
Or everybody,
right, right. In other words, what I'm doing is more important.
yes,
Right.
yes, because I'm doing it,
Right.
right.
No, I understand that, right.
Illness, now this is something that a lot of people don't understand and some people don't even believe. But we can pinpoint someone's illness by the pattern that they choose, by the sense that they favor. A visual will almost always get diseases or illnesses that range from here on up. Head colds, sore throats, headaches, migraines,
Migraine?
eye infections, eye problems,
I don't know, I don't get sick.
those kinds of things. They don't get sick very often, but when they do, because to be sick is ugly, and they don't want to be.
Well, it's impractical, you don't have time, and why bother? Who
Right.
wants to be sick?
Right, but
Some
anyway,
people do.
but, that's right, but anyway, they don't very often, but if they do, it's generally from here on up, it's almost never from there down.
I did get a cold recently.
But it probably stayed in your head, probably not in your lungs.
It only stayed in my head, and I went to the health food store and I got some antibiotics, and I
Got
was
rid of it.
over it. Right.
Yeah.
Because I know
Okay,
it's
and
it's
auditory.
stress.
Now, part of that is because of the way they breathe also.
Mhm.
But part of it's because of their posture, but part of it is because of the way they think.
Oh, mine was.
Subconsciously.
I was under stress. Too
Okay.
much stress.
Okay, the second pattern, the auditory, gets sick from here to stomach, intestine sometimes.
Mhm.
They will get a hiatal hernia,
That's
they'll
my
get, they'll
mother.
get ulcers, they'll get gallbladder problems, kidney problems, all of those organs, heart, lungs,
Mhm.
everything that goes in there, those are the auditories. They're getting them all. My wife went through a period for about 10 years when she was almost totally auditory, and she had every one of those. She had 7 major surgeries.
Why
One
didn't you
every
just
year.
tell her to stay well?
Well, because you did, and you know what she said? I don't choose to be sick. And of course, consciously, she did not. And I hope she doesn't see this because she doesn't believe that she did at all. And most people don't. Most people don't. When you get an ulcer, you know why you got an ulcer. But that doesn't mean you're going to do something about it.
Well, I definitely believe that a lot of our illness is brought on by mental, one way or another.
Ulcers, especially.
Mhm.
Now the kinesthetic will get things that are that have to do with the entire body.
Mhm.
Things like gout, rheumatism, arthritis,
Right.
things that go on all over the body.
Well, then how can you say like a child that has arthritis? That's unusual.
That's unusual.
Yes. Mhm. Probably these bugs that are flying around won't show up on the tape, and
No, they won't. And you'll be looking like a weirdo. all the
well,
time.
I thought you didn't aim that at me.
Oh, I moved it a little.
You cheated.
I did. Well, it's just the back of your head.
That's right.
Anyway, I didn't realize I bumped it. Anyway.
Now you're telling the truth. But that's okay, you promised to give me the visual part of it anyway.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, now we're on to the sales situation. In a
All right.
sales situation, there are some really important factors that
Mhm.
need to be considered in a sales situation.
Right.
If you are dealing with a visual, you need to show them something. In real estate, that's easy to do.
Picture of the house.
A picture of a house or the house itself.
Mhm.
If you're listing their home, it's tough to show them your services. However, with your service of Help You Sell, you have the easy way and the free list that you can
Mhm.
show them and give them and demonstrate to them, and it ought to always have a testimonial on it for the visual, so that they know that that person really exists who said the system works. Okay. It ought to always have a picture for the visual. If you're advertising to sell homes to visuals, it ought to have pictures of the house, so the visual can see the picture of the house. If you've got a whole list, a free list of just verbiage, they're not gonna buy a house from you. They probably won't even call.
Okay, but let me ask you now, this free weekly list does not have photographs other than it has this. There's no practical financial way that we could possibly send out anything that shows the
Sure.
houses
Sure you can. You can show one house or two homes every week.
on this.
Yeah, and let me tell you how I did it in my office. We would take 35mm camera pictures
Mhm.
of every house that we listed. And we'd take them to the local printer and have them shoot what was called a PMT or a halftone.
Oh, okay.
And the
I could do
halftones cost, and I don't know what they cost down here because I did it in Utah, but the halftones cost there the same for one sheet of 20 or 100 as it did for one sheet with one picture on it.
Mhm.
$9 in Salt Lake. You could have 6 pictures on it, or you could have 100.
And they
Little
don't
ones, 100 little ones,
Mhm.
and they don't care. Now, they may be different down here and charge different, but it couldn't be more than twice what it was in Salt Lake. It couldn't be more than 20 or $25. And you could probably put a half a dozen on there. And you'll have a picture of everyone, and you put it on your master when you start making the copies, and it comes out perfectly. Black and white, of course. Take the
Right.
picture in color, and then when they shoot the halftone, then it comes out in black and white. And it comes out perfectly in black and white. It's great.
Would it be easier to just go ahead and shoot it in black and white film?
No.
You cannot do that.
Well, besides everything else, it takes a long time to develop black and white film.
Mhm.
You shoot black and white film, it takes a week to develop it, because hardly anybody around here does it. They shoot, almost everybody sends it to Texas to do it. And
Well,
so
let's say you
so
could. I
but-
mean, could you? Because I have friends that develop black and white.
Well, yeah, you can, but it's just easier because you can take color, you can take it to a one-day developer, take it to that
Mhm.
one-day developer, and they'll have it done for you tomorrow, or in an hour. And, you know, if you're up against a deadline, and sometimes we are on a free list.
Right.
And you ought to have a picture. You ought, the two things you ought to have every week on it is one picture of a house and one testimonial every week. And a picture.
You know, I haven't noticed hardly anyone's flyer has,
And that's because they
pictures.
don't know what they're doing. That's why so many.
see, I know that they.
See, John and Linda don't understand this because they have, see, the people in Southern California have dealt with such an easy market for their entire lives that they don't really know how to sell real estate. All they know how to do is give it away. And if it's not being given away, they don't know what to do, and that's why they're all having such a problem.
Mhm.
And when I've been working this kind of market for 10 years, you get to be an expert.
The difficult market?
Yeah,
That's why I said, why don't you come to work
since
for me?
1980, because I have to be paid,
I know, but if you're that good, why can't you pay yourself?
because I need it today, not 60 days or 90 days from now.
Right.
Anyway, put those two things on every flyer and you'll get more buyers and more sellers.
Mhm.
Okay.
No, that sounds good.
Okay, and back to a sales situation. The auditory, in a listing presentation, they need to see this, and they also need to see the contract and the promises on the contract. The auditory, you just need to tell them about it, but you need to be very specific in your promises, because the auditory will remember everything you say. If you said something to an auditory in a listing presentation, 6 months later, they'll still remember what you said. And that was a promise,
Mhm.
whether you said it was a promise or not. You know, you said you'd do it, that makes it a promise. and they'll remember it and they won't forget. In
See,
fact, 10
I
years
don't.
from now, they'll still remember.
Right,
And they'll say, that lady at Help You Sell promised me this,
right.
she gave it to me, and I really appreciated it
Mhm.
for it.
I do, that is me.
Okay. Or if you missed one little thing,
Mhm.
just a little thing that you thought was meaningless,
Mhm.
they might remember it, and they
I
might say,
do.
and that poem, that, you know, and I hate
Well,
it.
no, but I
So-
still, even to this day, when they sold my house, did a good job, but I asked for a net sheet a minimum of 6 times. I never got it.
Right, I remember you telling me that.
That still annoys me.
Wow, that's understandable. Okay, the kinesthetic in the sales situation. Remember, they just have to feel good about it. And actually, they're the easiest to sell to. Because if they've got the money in hand,
Mhm.
and a good salesperson can build the feeling of almost anything for them. You know, they're, you know, if, I know a guy that every time he shows a home to a client, this is the method he uses. He'll show them 5 or 6 homes, understand what they want, and he'll leave them alone for a couple of days, and he'll go out and find the house he wants them to buy. When he's found that perfect house, he will ask the sellers to leave. He will take the buyers over, and at the prescribed time, you will have a dinner catered for them at that house. They'll have to sit down and eat in the house and get the feel of the house. And the success rate is about 95%.
It sounds good.
Now, the problem with that is, it sounds good.
No, it
is
does,
good.
because
It's good for kinesthetics,
when
but it
I
doesn't
buy
mean
a
a thing
house,
to.
they think I'm crazy. I tell them, well, do you mind if I come and just kind of spend 3 or 4 hours here? I want to see what the sun's like at certain times of the day. I want to see how I feel here. You mean you want to come in here and just sit in an empty house? Yeah, I want to sit in an empty house. Yeah, I do that.
Now, it works most of the time, but auditories don't care. All they don't care if it feels good or not, because they can't feel it. They don't have any feeling. Okay, all they care about is the bargain.
But see, it makes
So it doesn't.
just
So it wouldn't matter
depends.
on the auditories.
Maybe I'm more of a
More
visual. Well, I don't know. For my own personal residence that I'm going to stay in a long time,
Okay.
I like a bargain, but I want more of what I like,
Okay.
what
Let's
I
talk.
feel.
Let's talk about that now.
Okay.
When a person makes a purchase, they make a purchase, like I said, emotionally, and then they justify it
Mhm.
logically. Everybody doesn't justify it logically. The kinesthetic sometimes does.